Hey everyone, this is Jamie. Um, I probably should ring my Christmas bell thing, but my dog is asleep and everyone's kind of tired, so respecting that. Today I'm gonna talk about LGBT history that I can touch upon, and this got inspired by the fact that I was really kind of thinking that I want to read more books on queer theory, and every time I would ask people for suggestions, sorry for those who did the suggestions, but regardless, I felt like I couldn't identify, and I I don't enjoy a very feminine focused perspective, and that's exactly one of the reasons why I had been looking myself for a lot of queer books which would satisfy me. Well, it happens to everyone. You want to find someone with your perspective on some things, and then read a more insight on some things which you don't know or which you're open to changing and stuff like that. And also in general, I also had an interesting discussion uh, while I was hoeing around when it came to beliefs and values, which really made me think that obviously everyone has their values which they stand by, and some are obviously less reluctant to change them, some are more okay with changing, and obviously life changes, so you can change as well. So yeah, yay to Grinder. Anyway. So I was really looking for a queer book for a really long while, up to the point that I just gave up and started reading autobiographies. Um, and I'll get more into detail as I talk about the topic, and you might see it from the title of the video, so it's no surprise. So I kept thinking about that, and today I kind of just stumbled into the bookstore, and in general, uh, I've been struggling to find paperbacks which I like, other than just reading fan fiction or endlessly reading different Murakami novels. Alright, the bookstore sent me a welcome. Thank you, bookstore. Because I was nervous to get a bookstore card, and they were like, "Oh, whatever," and I was like, "Okay, thank you so much." I really forget that I have a lot of privilege in Portugal, where legally when you're doing documents they're very very annoying, and they really want to use official paper names, whatever, and library gyms, whatever, they're always really nice to me, and they're like, yeah, we get you. So that was really nice of them. And so I find this book. It's in Portuguese. I know, surprising. So I'm gonna give it a shout out, probably. I just flicked through pretty much every chapter while I was in the bookstore, and I realized that I really like it and I want to support it, because I really don't think that proper books on sex, sexuality, and identity are being published, and I really enjoyed from what I saw from the book while I was reading in the bookstore. In case you don't speak Portuguese or you didn't realize the connection if you know Spanish, the book is called literally Fuck or Fucking with a question mark, by Belle Oled. Uh, Basically, it was originally written in Spanish in Barcelona. What? No, it was written in Spanish. This is the only one which was written in Spanish. All the other ones are in Catalan. Seriously, I read the wiki. Sorry, that was just my partner chipping in. Anyway, they mostly write in Catalan, so and translate to Catalan. So basically, that got me thinking more about LGBT history and in general the whole focus of trans women right now. And recently there's a lot of, some like a Reddit recap so that you don't go into the deep pits of the FTM subreddits. Regardless, recap. People right now are fighting even more, and a lot of trans guys are. It's very strange because I'm really siding like with the binary guys until they start talking about non-binary people and expressions. Because I don't identify myself as feminine in any way. Because I wear a lot of makeup and people can think that I'm non-binary or feminine sometimes. So people overread it, and it's specifically like LGBT people who think that I'm non-binary or like gender non-conforming or whatever. Regardless, someone pointed out that there are a lot of trans guys which should be considered as the forefront runners when it comes to trans representation. And well, the world is very Americanized. We always look at America, even though a bunch of people disagree with me, but I don't care. It's really Americanized. Who did I talk to that I said that I was Americanized and didn't agree with me? Can't remember. I'm sorry. I've been talking to a lot of people these days. Regardless. So basically, they were looking just at American history. And I did agree with them that it's a bit strange to say that Marsha P. Johnson, who famously started the Stonewall riots, is the first trans activist. When you can like keep looking back and back and back into history, and obviously you've had trans men, you had trans women, you had non-binary people, just not always in America, surprise, surprise. And I'm trying to find a post because I'm bad with names. Like, I remember the guy who they were referring to, but the name escapes me, so I'm gonna quickly find it. And I was also very, very tired today, so I didn't really do much research. This is out of my head and just what I've compiled over the evening. Right. I should not hold a pause.
No, this is a bit too much rubbish.
Okay, basically I'm back. And the one which was mentioned was Reed Erickson. And the problem is that when you look at trans men in history, there's a lot of them, right? But they barely ever get mentioned. Like, I remember my university had a project for trans people to raise awareness. And one of the things that I did was I was a guest speaker along with a big doctor in Brazil, which came to visit. So obviously, everyone's speaking Portuguese. And what surprised me was that even if I was called to talk about my experience as a trans guy, they literally, so it was the people, I don't know if you follow my life or whatever, but I used to be in a volunteering organization, and then I had to leave because I got really annoyed at the TERFs. So, and because of that, a bunch of my friendships crumbled because people sided with the TERF. So whatever. Anyway, and they were also like, "What the fuck is a non-binary?" And it's not probably trans. So obviously, I called them out, and the group collapsed. Yeah, I'm quite revengeful. Anyway, so they did this trans history timeline and famous trans people, and they only had one trans guy, and I was like, I don't even know who that guy is, and he was like something like an activist in the 2000s, and I was like, where's Lou Sullivan, like, for instance. And there's really a lot of trans guys there. So it really puzzles me that you hear about them once, and that's it. Even when it comes to trans male communities, trans masculine communities, people tend to forget that we existed. Surprise, surprise. Like, it's really bizarre because we get erased a lot. And I also wanted to. Now I'm gonna actually start the topic. Enough fluff. So, I understand that everyone can interpret history differently, and everyone can write their own history. Like, for real. Like, I'm sorry, if certain politicians get redeemed after a few years, I mean, why not write a good book, which can later be turned into history? And in general, as a person who's interested in modern history, specifically World War II, there's a lot of rewrites, there's a lot of bad information, and people just fuck up. So yeah, I really hate how Americans view history in general. So okay, so I wanted to say that I'm gonna start off with a bang. I fucking hate Leslie Feinberg, so let's hate on them. So, if you know Leslie Feinberg, you probably know of their book Stonebush Blues, which is probably one of the worst books ever written, in my opinion, and the most harmful ones. Because they identified as a butch, then went into transition, and basically the whole book is a mess. It's just a fucking mess. And unfortunately, due to its popularity and TERF rhetoric, there is a scene which I'm gonna talk about in a minute, where the main character, which was inspired by Leslie themselves, who moves from their small hometown into a bigger city, and I can't remember, I think it was San Francisco or New York, but whatever. And then they go into a gay bar, and they're like super butch, like they got kicked out or whatever for wearing men's clothing, and realizing that they're a lesbian by wearing men's clothing. Like, all right. So they travel to the big city, and first thing they do, or nearly first thing they do, is go into a gay bar. And it starts off with the fact that the main character is like oh my god, there's no butches and femmes. Like, what the fuck is going on? Is this the future? I hate the future. And to really avoid that, specifically like when I try to fight people on the book and in general. So then they find a bar which actually has how is it? Lipstick lesbians and butch. Sorry, I'm not very well versed in terminology these days. I'm just like scrapping from what I remember. So basically, they get taken in by a butch who, what I understand, again, I might be wrong, but in general, when I was watching like lesbian movies, watching basically any LGBT literature I could find, I saw that butches had mentors on how to like be a butch lesbian. And in general, if you go now on Reddit on are butch lesbians, like literally transition. So it really begs the question, why are you identifying as a lesbian? Because a lesbian is a woman attracted to a woman. If then you have the other question, which goes like, if you're non-binary, can you identify as gay or lesbian? And that I think is up to everyone. And obviously you can choose the box that fits you. But the problem is that with this whole belief that you need to be taught and how it was before, and lesbians erasing history of trans guys, it's a mess. So I really wanted to point out that then the character, I think that the character's name was Jess, but I really don't remember. And then they start like freaking out because some butchers are into other butchers, and I'm like, well, what's wrong with that? And then they go on a rant that it shouldn't be like that. It should always be femme and ma and butch. So I was like, already gears grinding. And then I remembered that I read once a lesbian pulp novel. And when you read like from stone butch perspectives, and then from like lipstick lesbians or like femmes, I don't know, man. Anyway, you tend to focus, they like at the time, okay, we're gonna talk about the United States, hurrah. um at the time, like women were deemed like hysterical for orgasms or whatever, and in general, yes, they were treated badly. And that's where a lot of white feminism stems from. So you can see, but like, look at the suffragettes, like, Jesus Christ, that was a mess. So, like, people really tend to like say, oh, they're fine because, you know, they started something. And that's good enough for me because I'm white and I'm middle class. And from US or UK, whatever. So people tend to raise that a lot. And so I was reading the lesbian pulp novel, and because when you look at the ideology, it's always that, or for instance, even when I stumbled upon a post, which was a woman was complaining to her lesbian friend that she wasn't satisfied from sex, and then the lesbian woman said, I'll hook you up with this butch lesbian and she'll make you like come all night. And the woman was really proud that she converted or whatever the other friend into better sex. And I was like, uh there's I mean, it's fine to, like, obviously sleep with whoever you want, but if the person is straight, you can also, like, trans men exist who are attracted to women, no? I know that you probably look at me and you probably think everyone's gay, but there are straight trans men out there, okay? Trust me. Trust me. Um, so yeah, so basically the whole dynamics are that uh, the femme lesbians try to get orgasms from the stone butch because they are more focused on giving their partner an orgasm. Then the stone butch runs into a problem. Right, quick definition of stone butch. Uh, they were like extreme butch, basically like super extreme, like up to the point that they would go on HRT, get surgery, not follow as far as I know. Regardless. So, but the point was that their dysphoria was so high about their body that they would not let the other partner please them. So basically, for the femme lesbians, it was like, oh great, I'm getting sex, I don't have to please anyone, whatever. Which I understand that some people are like that, and okay. But the more you read from a Stonebutch perspective, in the end, they break and they find a lesbian who eases their dysphoria. I'm calling a spade, and makes them orgasm. Yeah, it's that simple. So it's basically uh, this odd chain of events where it's like woman runs away from man to a man in a vagina. I'm sorry. To get an orgasm, but does not give the partner orgasm because the partner is too dysphoric. Then the suspiciously stone butch tries to find someone who knows how to please stone butches. So yeah, very fun. And I think it's all because there's a lot of erasure in history. Like, for instance, one of the books I heavily identified with when I was trying to understand who I was and stuff was The Well of Loneliness by Radcliffe Hall. And Radcliffe Hall actually literally lived life as a man and went by John and did not uh, like to be like in female circles and was treated as male. So, and the word invert, there's a lot of debate about this. A lot of people think that it means homosexual, but if you look at the definitions fucking correctly and not from a turf source, it means trans. So in the Well of Loneliness one, again, I don't know if it's Stephen or Stefan, because technically, it can be two pronunciations of that name. So I was like, I don't know. Regardless, the main character refers to himself as an introvert. Sorry, introvert. Yes, they were an introvert, but invert, because that's what they found from their dad while he was researching on the topic. Um, so then lesbians kind of started really going the Leslie Feinberg obsessed sort of like. So the future ended up being not the one which Leslie Feinberg saw and was scared would happen, but the actual future actually turns into that shit where the bar which Leslie Feinberg founds became a reality. So yeah, that's fucked up. I mean, and also we have to look back at the fact that straight women were always really desired by lesbians, and who are straight women most attracted to masculinity or their perception of masculinity. And a lot of the times you can see like people or lesbians back in the day saying that, oh yeah, I for instance, even Cynthia Nixon, sorry, calling you out, was quoted that uh, her wife didn't feel like a sudden change for her because it was literally a guy but with a vagina. So I was like, right. And a lot of people, like, seriously, people, like, look at yourself back in the 2000s, 2010s. Seriously, you said a bunch of that shit. We've all done it. We've all been guilty, whatever. Let's move on. So, yeah, like, that perception that lesbians are guys with vaginas was very harmful. And in general, like, I remember I was in an LGBT group, and this lesbian was saying, "Oh, I love Boys Don't Cry. It's such a beautiful lesbian movie." And I'm like, all right. I was out as a trans guy then, and I was like, regardless. So it was always kind of this. People argue that a lot of lesbian porn and etc. is catered for straight guys or guys interested in women or whatever. And okay, I can see that. Like, literally, straight porn is very, very catered for straight people. And it's very difficult when you're not someone who's interested in the view of straight porn to find other porn. Like, this is where I'm gonna hop onto specifically gay people and trans guys and trans women. So basically, I wanted to say, for instance, if you look back, there's a lot of, like, from the top of my head, there's the French guy who wrote the Our Lady of the Flowers, which is also, like, used in a famous Placebo song, Lady of the Flowers, and in general was very popular at the time. Novel to read among gay guys or bisexual guys. And it lasted a really long while. And I remember when I was reading it, I was like, why am I reading about a straight couple? This feels very straight. Because, so you had those two opposites. Like, for instance, where trans women were seen as something that gay men were into. Like, for instance, in the Lady of the Flowers, and like, a lot of gay men, like, realize later that they're bi or that they are in a relationship with a trans woman and support her. And I think it's, in some cases, less of a cultural shock because it's within the LGBT community. So I guess more eye-opening rather than all the troubles which I see trans women encounter with their wives, with their cis wives. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, I have no idea how many times I've heard trans women not transitioning to their extent just to save their marriage. Just because the cis wife wants a dick. And it's like, so you literally have extremes. Like, everyone is so interested, and obviously, thinking about how everything is catered for the male orgasm. But hey, there's women out there who also do shitty things, you know? Um, and the fact that people erase women as victims is. Sorry, women who assault, they label them still victims because they're women, and therefore, if they rape, it's okay. Um, Men can't get raped. Um, yeah, men can be abused. So it's really, really fucked up when people ignore that, really. So yeah. Moving on. And then there's the other side of the coin, like for instance, James Baldwin, who's celebrated for Giovanni's Room, which I could not finish because of the transphobia. I couldn't finish it because there was like a trans woman which came into a gay bar and started talking to the main character, and she was deemed as an exile in the gay bar, and everyone was saying like, yeah, she curses people, like, you know, like jinxes, whatever. And I was like, what the fuck is this rubbish? And I threw it out. um, so yeah, and back to France, you have Jeanne d'Arc. I'm sorry, I can't speak French. So basically, where there's debates whether she was a cross-dresser, a trans guy, a non-binary person, just a woman in man's clothes, and it goes on. And there's a lot of historians as well. I'm not saying just serves to erase it. Historians love to fucking erase anything out of their norm. And in general, when you look at laws, you can see that obviously most laws are targeted towards gay men. And it really annoys me when people say gay men have it better, when that's clearly not the case. If you really look at laws, and a lot of laws just omitted lesbians, which, yes, it's bad that they were just like, whatever, they're lesbian. But at the same time, it raises the fact that that's how much men were persecuted, you know? And because of that, I was reading an interesting study about gay men being attracted to masculinity because so let's go a bit into modern observation of the 20th century when it comes to gay men. So lesbians started doing the sort of thing, Mishfest, radical feminism, Valerie Solanas, a bunch of queer theorists arguing with each other, feminists turning into queer theorists, Judith Butler, like, I swear to fucking God, like, who the fuck is writing their wiki page? Like, there's literally, like, a phrase which goes, like, she's a lesbian, and everything else is in they, and I'm like, I remember that interview where they said that they prefer they, and there were a few interviews as well, actually. But yeah. Anyway, shout out to Judith Butler, they're awesome. And yeah, that's actually a good example because people tend to like cancel people or view negatively or take Judith Butler's Gender Trouble book and use it as turf ideology, for which then Judith Butler went on a massive array of interviews and tried to explain to people that the turf ideology wasn't there and the book is outdated, yes. So basically, people can change and people do understand. So as masculinity was more seeked in the 20th century due to the fact that being gay and any mannerism which was considered gay was wrong, gay guys started doing the opposite. And also, because there was no gay representation properly, and there was this whole cult of obviously trying not to get into jail or kicked in the face, they tried to mask themselves up to an extreme. Like, for instance, if you look at illustrations by Tom of Finland, like, are they sexy? Yeah. Like, I'm not gonna argue, but I understand that they're a very exaggerated version of reality. And we get caught up in that fantasy as gay guys because there's still a big kind of stigma, and now it's growing even more, where guys literally have a scripted sex at this point, like for real. Like, you have no idea how many tops of a concert who are like, I don't suck dick, that's the bottom's job, but I can rim you, and I'm like, fuck me. So yeah, it happens to trans guys, it happens to cis guys, everyone's, so it literally goes, sorry for the graphic, the bottom sucks the top guy's dick, maybe the top guy will rim the guy, and then they fuck, and that's it. And it's like, guys, variety. So yeah. So while that mess is happening, I mean, I'm not against people who are comfortable in their skin and want to be a stereotypical bottom, stereotypical top, but we must acknowledge that the view of the super macho man is not the one you should be striving for, or like, the more I think about it, like, every time I encounter someone who is gay, and even if they're tops, there's a 90% chance that they're very uneducated. You know, like, I love Derek Barry with all my heart, but when he said that people died, that's pretty much how it is these days. People don't know shit. People don't know shit about our culture. People don't understand. People don't read. Like, for fuck's sake, why are we listening to trans-mask autobiographies cater for a female audience? Like, I understand that non-binary people obviously are on the non-binary scale, but it's like, if you're a binary trans guy, maybe you should read your own history. Like, what's the point of fucking reading Leslie Feinberg for the 31st time? Jesus. This is getting pretty long. Okay. What I wanted to say is, please know your history. We're at this really weird period where we are trying to impose heterosexuality more than ever, and heterosexual views on marriage, on gay people, and etc. And in general, I'm gonna end this with a quote which made me really think. It's not a quote per se, but I'm sure I'll come back to this topic. I'll surely talk about history again, and I'm sure you'll get another 40-minute video again. Regardless, it made me think. So, when I was hoeing, yes, every good idea comes when I was hoeing. The same guy who I started the conversation about said, I don't understand why gay people and gay couples want to get the same marriage recognition as the heterosexuals, and then they kind of meld into this form of heterosexuality when obviously we have nothing in common. and then demand even more rights. And that was probably the main argument which made sense to me against legalizing marriage, which was weird because obviously it's been in Portugal for a few years now. And in general, it's kind of something you strive for, obviously. So that really kind of got me thinking, like, why are we trying to be like our oppressors and the people who are enforcing? Because the macho man was everything we saw, and the butch lesbian was like the one who would give you an orgasm, up to the point that history raises trans guys to no extent, to like all extent. It's like if it's someone in pants, butch lesbian, man. So yeah, so it's fucked up everywhere. Everyone's fucked up. So yeah, to end on this note, why are we trying to imitate our oppressors? Good night, everyone.